Bore da pawb and welcome to this morning's webinar on the North Wales Economic Ambition Board. A warm welcome to everybody wherever you're joining us from today for this Wales Week in London event. Just a few notes before we start. I'm Carole Green. I'm the work and economic correspondent for ITV Wales, covering business stories, and I hail from North Wales, so it's a great privilege for me today to chair this event. So before we get underway, I'd just like to say translation services are available now. If you go to your chat bar, we welcome questions and contributions in English and Welsh, so you will be able to access those translation services by clicking on the globe and selecting English, and you're welcome to make your contributions in both languages. And we would love you to contribute your questions, and you can do that through the Q&A bar at the bottom of your screen. I would respectfully ask your questions to be tight and bright, as we say in journalism, just nice and concise, because it's a bit of a juggle sometimes to read long questions. So if you'd like to say who you'd like those to be directed to as well. We'll get through as many as we can today. I'm sure this session will fly by. If your question doesn't get put today, it may be answered by text, or the board managers will address those questions in the days ahead. So without further ado, I think we shall get underway. I'd like to say croeso, welcome to Dyfrig Siencyn, first of all. Now, Dyfrig is the chair of the Economic Ambition Board. He is steering the ship, and he was elected in 2019. And I would like to invite Dyfrig to give us an overview of what it's all about.
That's a very broad question. It'll take me another hour to go through that. No, well, the Ambition Board was initiated many years ago. It's probably 8 years ago now, when all the 6 counties of the north, the universities, the colleges, and the private sector got together and said, well, look, we can't continue with matters of economic development on our own, each with his own strategy. We need something on a regional basis. And it's quite important, really, that partnership has grown organically and has evolved into what we now have as know as the North Wales Economic Ambition Board. Lately, of course, we've been very much focused on getting the growth deal in place. That's taken us over the work over the last 3 years, and very pleased to say, really, that we've now signed up the final agreement, and in fact we are awaiting the receipt of the first funds within the next few weeks. So we are ready to go with our projects, and we're looking forward to spending that money so that we can improve the lives of the people of North Wales and across the whole of North Wales. So I think perhaps would that be enough of an overview at this point in time? We are, of course, obviously looking at other opportunities outside of the growth deal, and that includes, of course, private investment. And I think we have a job of work to be done to promote North Wales as one of the best places for investment. We have a skilled workforce ready and waiting. So that's perhaps the message I would like to give today.
Diolch. I'd like to ask Alwen Williams now. Alwen, the Portffolio Director, you took up your current role just over a year ago after a career in telecoms, and please just give us that oversight, just adding to what Dyfrig has brought so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I joined in January 2020 as Portfolio Director, and by that time, obviously, the Economic Ambition Board had decided to invest in a portfolio management office and in the right resources to deliver the growth deal. And I was hugely encouraged with that, because in order to deliver this vast portfolio of projects, we need the right resources in place. And I think today you'll get an introduction from each of the programme managers that have been recruited into the team. We have spent the last 12 months really working up a good partnership with both governments, talking to the private sector and establishing the right governance assurance structures and crafting the portfolio and programme business cases, which has then secured the 240 million of investment that will start flowing in, as Dyfrig said, within the next few weeks. So it's been a year of really setting up to deliver. I think it's fair to say that the whole team now are really excited to start delivering, and that the hard work and the work on really developing the projects and making that difference, seeing something tangible for North Wales will start from this year onwards.
Diolch, Alwen. And of course, the pandemic, all this is happening at an incredibly unprecedented time, as we say, but certainly a challenge, but also plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen the economy change in so many ways. It's been devastating, but it's also helped us to reinforce that the areas for investment we've selected as an Economic Ambition Board are the right areas for long-term sustained economic growth, and especially around digital infrastructure, for example. I mean, we've seen so many people revert to the need to conduct their daily lives over Zoom and meetings like this, and use of the internet and dependency on that. So we've got digital, we've got land and property, we've got innovation in high value manufacturing, agri-food and tourism, and low carbon energy. They're the 5 key themes that had been selected pre-COVID. And I think if you test each of those now in the current crisis and for the future, they are absolutely the right areas for investment.
And Dyfrig, those areas for investment, of course, there have always been lots of economic development plans and so on, and sometimes the public can be forgiven for feeling, oh, it's another one. How will this Economic Ambition Board and your programmes be different?
Yes, I confess I'm probably part of that cynicism that we've seen so many plans which really have not affected people's lives. One thing different about these projects is that they've grown from the needs of the people of North Wales. These are not imposed. These have been developed and considered carefully by the 6 local authorities, by the colleges, by the private sector as well. And these have been developed, which we believe will make a difference. And that is the challenge for us now, really, isn't it? That once we have the money in our hands, that we spend this money and that we can show people the effect that expenditure will have on people's lives. And if ever there was a time when we needed investment, well, now is that time. Our economy has suffered an extreme setback with COVID. We've had some effects of leaving the EU. So this is an opportunity for us to make a difference. And I think basically because we have developed these from the roots, as it were, I think that is the key to success, hopefully.
Diolch. Well, I'd like to welcome the panelists now. Of course, all those areas so key to the North Wales economy are represented, from energy, digital, high value manufacturing, land and property, and it's a public-private sector partnership as well. So we have a representative from the private sector, which in many ways will bring a different energy to this programme. If I can ask Henry Aaron. Now, Henry is the Energy Programme Manager. Could you just outline some of the headlines of your area for us today, please?
Yes, certainly. Bore da pawb. Good morning all. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. Yeah, so I'm Henry Aaron. I'm the Low Carbon Energy Programme Manager, and the Low Carbon Energy Programme is one of the 5 key programmes within the North Wales Growth Deal. And what we're aiming to achieve is to build on North Wales' position as a leading UK location for low carbon energy. And I think that's a really important point, because North Wales is already a hub for low carbon energy. We've hosted a number of big projects in the past, and we've got the natural resources, we've got the tides, we've got the solar, we've got the wind, and the nuclear sites that present significant opportunities for us going forward. So we've got some powerful drivers behind the low carbon energy programme, most notably the drive towards net zero. We've all committed to achieving net zero by 2050. We've also committed in North Wales to Wales as a whole, actually, to achieving a net zero public sector by 2030. So some really powerful drivers there. But the key with the energy programme is that we're aiming to achieve net zero and build towards net zero whilst contributing towards economic growth at the same time. So creating jobs, increasing prosperity across the region. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend around £85 million and invest that 85 million into 5 transformational energy projects across the region that can A, help us decarbonise our energy system, and B, create jobs and growth. We're aiming to create around at least 800 new jobs and secure approximately 600 million of investment through the 85 million that we're going to spend. So we've got 5 projects. And if I've got time, Carole, I can quickly run you through those projects.
Yes, please, that would be great. Give us an overview. Deal.
Okay. So I'll start with the project that we're likely to see come forward first, which is the Morlais Tidal Energy Project that's being led by a social enterprise called Mented Morn, based on Anglesey. And what this project does is it will use the predictable natural flow of the tide as it races around Holyhead and place turbines in that tidal flow to create clean, predictable energy. And what we're seeking to do is invest in the infrastructure that would connect the offshore tidal energy zone with the national grid system. And once that infrastructure is in place, that will then attract developers into the zone, deploy their turbines, spend money manufacturing and assembling their turbines, hopefully in North Wales, that's the objective. And what it would do is position North Wales as one of the leading global locations for this new and emerging technology, so give us that early mover advantage. And we've got a similar type of project at Trawsfynydd as well. Trawsfynydd is a nuclear site that's being decommissioned at the moment, and it's got the perfect characteristics for hosting the next generation of nuclear reactors. We call them small modular reactors or advanced modular reactors. And UK government recently outlined its support for these new technology within its energy white paper. So we're going to be investing in enabling infrastructure at the site that places it in the best possible position to attract in developers and investors, so we can see small modular reactors or advanced modular reactors at the site. And the thing with nuclear is that it creates really well-paid jobs. And again, it's a technology that we're familiar with in North Wales, having hosted Wilver and the old Trawsfynydd site. Okay, thirdly, we're looking at a project likely to be centred around a Deeside industrial park that uses hydrogen to decarbonise transport. Now, hydrogen is a clean fuel that can be created through renewable energy. And what you can use it for is to decarbonise parts of our economy that are quite difficult to decarbonise. So things like heavy goods vehicles, large buses, and heavy industry. So we're looking at how we can use hydrogen to help us decarbonise by using Deeside as a demonstrator project. We're also working very closely with Bangor University on the Low Carbon Energy Centre of Excellence. And what this will involve is building brand new world-class buildings and facilities, both at the main Bangor University campus and at the Menai Science Park campus, to support innovation and research and development across North Wales. And this is key, really, in terms of making North Wales a hub for low carbon. You know, it supports the sector, it can attract business growth, and it helps create that environment for inward investment. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we've got the Smart Local Energy Project, which is a project that we're developing ourselves as the Ambition Board. And this is a project that will look right across Wales at how we can support the region to achieve renewable energy targets. It will focus on how can we increase take-up of renewables? How can we work with communities to ensure that communities have a greater stake and ownership in the projects that we invest in? And also, what are the innovative things we can do to help decarbonise the energy system? So, you know, a lot of our communities in North Wales are off the gas grid, for instance, but they need to be able to decarbonise their heating system. So how's that going to work? So we're going to look at, again, some demonstrator projects that enable us to test some innovative new technologies in these areas. So there's a bit of a summary of the programme, Carole.
Thank you for that, Henry. And just to say, obviously, Anglesey Energy Island, it's been a bit stop-start. There have been disappointments along the way, but how important was that announcement this week, backing for the hydrogen hub? All depends on the business case.
It does, and it was a really, great bit of news there. And I think the great thing about the Holyhead Hydrogen Hub is that there are strong synergies and links with what we're trying to do at Deeside. So if you've got a hub at Holyhead and a hub at Deeside, well, basically you've got that kind of pole to pole. If you're looking at the transport networks across North Wales, got the A55, you've got the heavy goods vehicles coming off the ferry at Holyhead, and you've got the numerous kind of heavy goods vehicles fleets at Deeside. So it gives you that opportunity to coordinate and integrate across North Wales. So that was, fantastic to see that coming through within the budget.
Thank you, Henry. Well, if we can just move on to the digital programme, and Stuart Whitfield, if you'd like to just give us an overview, your headlines, what are we likely to see first? Where are the priority areas? And as Alwen said earlier, this has really come to the fore, hasn't it, during the pandemic?
Yeah, thanks, Carole. Alwen's absolutely right. Obviously, she has significant insight into the industry, and her comments before around COVID are entirely relevant. We're all using connectivity now for this purpose, but it goes beyond business. It also affects communities right across the region. It's an exciting time in the UK for telecoms. There's fibre optic networks being deployed everywhere. 5G is starting to increase in coverage, and it's very much in the Ambition Board's minds to make sure that the growth deal delivers for North Wales and brings us onto a par, if not in advance, of the national picture. I think it was back in 2018 when the digital programme was first being conceived by the Ambition Board and the officers working for its members, that these priorities emerged for the region, and we ended up drawing up 5 projects, so pretty much in the same format as Henry's outlined there for the energy programme. We have 5 distinct areas of proposed investment, 4 of which consist of infrastructure investments, which the Ambition Board itself will lead on, and a 5th project, which is very exciting indeed, is with Bangor University, supporting their research and development capabilities, which includes 5G. So not only are we looking to invest in the region to serve our needs now and for the foreseeable future, for the next 5, 10, 15 years or so, but we're also looking to invest as a region in Bangor University to establish it as a centre of excellence to develop the technologies of the future. So very much looking at the here and now, but looking much further into the future as well. The 5 projects have been selected. Unfortunately, we can't invest everywhere as much as we'd like to. That is very much something that we would like to pursue in the long term. Telecoms isn't a devolved matter in Wales. It sits with UK government as a reserve matter, and we are going to work with UK government alongside their own investment plans for Wales to make sure that the investment directed by the Ambition Board meets our immediate priorities to achieve economic growth and sustainability. So those 5 projects are in no particular order. We've got the DSP project, as we call it, the Digital Signal Processing Centre of Excellence project at Bangor University. It's a bit of a mouthful, but in short, it is to increase Bangor's capability and capacity to undertake cutting-edge, world-class research with major corporate consumers or customers very much interested in progress being made there. So the likes of, for example, BT, Fujitsu, and Openreach, Vodafone, etc. The big names would be typical users of this technology with applications right around the UK and indeed globally. The benefits of that project, though, aren't just to support the big names. It's also to increase the supply chain capacity within the region to create jobs in high value manufacturing with the most cutting edge technologies. And I'm sure Askar will touch upon this later in terms of his expertise and interests in the region's SMEs, who we hope to benefit from this capacity on their doorstep. So looking beyond the R&D elements of the programme, our bulk of investments is going to be in infrastructure to meet those requirements here and now for SMEs principally and communities. I think it's fair to say, and perhaps Dyfrig might kind of validate this later on, right at the forefront of our leaders' minds back in 2018 was to address rural connectivity around the region. It's a big issue for many communities who find themselves before broadband, who, for example, may struggle to join events such as this, or to use Skype or FaceTime, etc., to speak to loved ones during COVID. It's been an issue, not just professionally, but also on a social basis and for well-being, etc. It's proven to be absolutely a vital lifeline. That goes beyond the kind of lifestyle options that people like to use technology for, such as socialization, but also into education and also healthcare. So we're very clear that connectivity is both a challenge and an opportunity for rural communities. We have, unfortunately, a persistent issue in terms of rural connectivity. Welsh governments have played their part in recent years and succeeded with significant expansion of broadband right across Wales, and North Wales has had its share of that. And in fact, the UK government has some very ambitious plans for gigabit capability across the UK in the next 4 years or so. In the short term, in the next 2 to 3 years, we hope to use the growth deal investment to target the hardest to reach areas who have yet to secure good quality broadband. And that is very much a priority of every county council as well, the leaders, etc., and their officers. So beyond residential connectivity, bearing in mind that we have very good coverage in the towns typically in terms of superfast broadband, we're now also looking at full fibre broadband to support SMEs at key commercial sites. So we've identified a selection of industrial estates, business parks, and key areas of economic activity where we feel that the very latest gigabit capable full fibre connectivity can deliver immediate benefits to industries and individual businesses who can be the earlier exploiters of the fastest broadband, for example. COVID has obviously proven that home working is a viable way of businesses operating their workforce. So we're currently looking at the extent to which the impact of full fibre connectivity at business parks is going to be significant, and whether perhaps we need to be focusing more on residential areas. So that very much is now in the mix as an option, whereas perhaps back in 2019, pre-COVID, the situation was very different, or at least that priority wasn't as clear. So beyond full fibre connectivity, we're also looking at the next generation, if you like, of connectivity, which would be of interest to businesses. It's happening now in the form of 5G, but unfortunately, we are seeing 5G typically being targeted by the private sector through commercial investment in the larger towns and cities. That pattern is starting to merge into the smaller towns and settlements, but North Wales, unfortunately, has yet to attract significant investment from the private sector in 5G. So the ambition board through the growth deal, again, has this option to bring that investment forward, to direct that where we feel it can have the immediate commercial benefits. And again, we've identified some sites around the region where we feel various industries can benefit right now, but also into the next 10, 15 years or so. So it's really breaking the cycle that we've seen before in terms of 4G and 3G, where we've been typically quite late to the table and getting significant coverage, and through the growth deal, bringing that coverage target forward with the support of our partners across the region and indeed the private sector. So beyond 5G at our commercial sites, we're also looking at the potential for 5G to deliver major benefits on transport networks. So the region is huge. We are a geographically vast area for our population, and our transport networks are absolutely critical for the success of the economy. We've got major trunk roads and rail routes, which are a vital lifeline to every county, every corner of the region. And we feel, on the basis of the evidence that we've seen elsewhere in the UK and across Europe, that 5G can play a big part in improving the experience of passengers on rail, for example, but also in the operation of roads, and potentially into the future with such things as autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles. So very much looking at the future for 5G, the future of 5G, I should say, for our transport networks. And then finally, really extending the power of a range of communication options, such as 5G, to sites around the region where we believe industries might be in a good position to benefit right now. So we've identified business parks, for example, where we feel that 5G can play a big part in making their businesses more productive, more efficient, and more sustainable going into the future. And this is very much about painting a picture of North Wales as somewhere which has the best connectivity in the UK. It can attract companies into the region who are looking to capitalise on that quality of connectivity, and for the region to no longer be seen as second best in terms of connectivity options. So in a nutshell, those are the 5 broad areas of investment. The bigger picture is that the UK government has significant plans for connectivity around the region. Most recently, it's launched a UK 5G supply chain diversification strategy, and this very much sets out the importance of 5G for the country going forward, but also in the context of our growth deal projects, the potential role that Bangor University can play in that strategy. So it's, as I said at the outset, it's an extremely exciting time in the UK, in the industry, and North Wales now, through the growth deal, has a means of participating.
Thank you, Stuart, for that. And so much to unpack there. Digital, the importance of it, turbocharged by the pandemic across our lives, our working lives, and our home working lives, and our private lives, obviously, as well, with keeping in touch. And essential, if we're not to be left behind, that's those plans are delivered for our communities and for our businesses, because such a important part of the infrastructure these days, isn't it? Well, if I can move on to Robin Lovelock. Now, Robin, you've got a very important portfolio covering high value manufacturing. Obviously, we've got some global players in North Wales, thinking of Airbus in that northeast corner, JCB, Toyota, to name but a few. And then across the brief, agri-food and tourism, again, significant and important industries for North Wales. Tourism, bringing in over £3 billion a year to the economy. And of course, agriculture, the very fabric of our rural community, so important for our cultural and linguistic life. So if I could just invite you to give us an overview of your programme, please.
Thank you, Carole, and a pleasure to join today. And as you say, the 2 programmes that I lead are absolutely integral to the area, really building on key strengths in manufacturing across the Dee and Mersey area and into North Wales, and then building on long-standing sector successes in tourism, agriculture and food. So there's a lot of shared, while the 2 programmes are separate, they do have a lot of shared aims and really driving for the creation of jobs and investment around innovative ways of working across all sectors, collaboration and training, particularly as we transition to a lower carbon economy across the region. So to talk a bit more about the projects themselves, within the high value manufacturing programme, I work with 2 partners, the Wrexham Glyndŵr team and university team, and also Bangor University. So with Wrexham Glyndŵr, working on enterprise engineering and optics centre, which is really an exciting opportunity that again really builds on the strength of the region around on the Airbus expertise and in the supply chains there. So the aim of the centre is to bring together expertise in the areas of optics and hydrogen, build on a hydrogen experience, and also around biocomposites. So the purpose is really to help businesses across the region transition to lower carbon ways of working. So where we might have used metals previously, now looking to lightweight these materials and make particularly transport, whether that's air transport or other, much lower emissions, lower requirements for getting around. And that could be working with companies such as the caravan industry, for example, and lightweighting those kind of materials, as well as more kind of aerospace and type of work. So really, as I say, building on the long-standing skills from the region there. The work with Bangor University is more exploratory, more innovative around biotechnology. So this is a new area for me, but it's really using something called extremophiles, which are enzymes that live in extreme environments. And it's looking at really research and development around how we could use these extremophiles to start replacing things like plastic and our reliance on fossil fuels. So really trying to explore what the potential is in that area. And that's setting up a centre and driving the innovation and research that's needed to move away from reliance on those fossil fuel industries. Moving into the agriculture and tourism side of things, I have 3 projects that I work on in that area. So with agriculture, really exciting to work with the Gogledd Cymru farm on this project, where they're aiming to be one of the first net zero farms across the UK. So what this would look like would be becoming a demonstration centre as well as a fully operational farm itself, but really showing, working with local farmers and agricultural businesses to show how digital advances could help ease traditional farming practices, and make them more efficient, reducing emissions as they go. Also looking at on-farm renewable energy opportunities. So whether that's producing energy from slurry, currently maybe not used fully on many farms. So how do we create energy from that, as well as other materials that could be used in other ways on the farm, alongside things like solar and wind energy that's more familiar. And really making the purpose of the centres to really make those technologies accessible to farmers and give them a chance to get hands-on and understand how they work. Then the second project is the Gynllun Rural Economy Hub, and this will be a food grade space at the Gynllun Agricultural Centre. So food grade space and a knowledge hub that will provide a space for innovative food and drink businesses to really launch and get started where they might not be ready yet for their own individualized manufacturing services. So providing an opportunity for them to make a start, pilot new products, and get a foot in the business and in the sector. And as you will be aware, this area around food manufacturing is a key area for the region and growing all the time. A huge number of new businesses starting up throughout the COVID lockdown period around food, and there really is so many opportunities in North Wales, bringing together the agricultural heritage of the region with this kind of more innovative opportunity and business support. And then the final project is the Tourism Talent Academy, and this is a project that we're working with with the Grŵp Clr team, and building on one of their existing campuses on Dros to provide a hub and spoke model where that really supports the tourism sector to offer experiences that match our international reputation around heritage tourism, culture and landscape. The hub at the Dros campus will provide the core training offer, and it'll be working with gateway partners, leading tourism attractions across the region, Zip World, Surf Snowdonia, to provide really exciting opportunities for young people to work across the sector and build that international standard of customer service and hospitality that we are proud of in the region. So those are the five projects, all diverse, but as I say, very much working towards common aims around job creation and preparing the region for a transition to low carbon economy. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Trobyn. And how important is it that there isn't a silo approach, if you like, that it does all web together and work to that common aim? You touched on it there within your own portfolio area of responsibility.
Absolutely, and that's something I'm actually responsible for realising the benefits across the whole of the growth deal portfolio. So not just across the 5 projects that I've just outlined, but linking the others and making sure that we avoid that silo mentality. So it's something that is in my mind daily. I think the projects, while they're distinct, they all offer something very compelling. You know, when you look at them together and the opportunities across them, and really building on the linkages, you know, building on what the farm offers, how that links into the food offer, you know, how the portfolio, across the portfolio, we are really expanding opportunities across the tourism sector. And I think the way that the growth deal is set up through working with partners, also, you know, they also add an essential component, the glue, that provides the added value really, and makes the individual projects more than the sum of their parts.
Thank you for that. Well, moving on to the land and property portfolio, and David Matthews, if you'd just like to give us an overview of the headline areas for this particular portfolio, please.
Yeah, certainly, Carol. Thanks. Nice to be with you, everybody. David Matthews, Land and Property Programme Manager, as Carol's just said. A brief outline of the Land and Property Programme, brief overview. It's viewed as an enabling programme within the North Wales Economic Ambition Board. Historically, North Wales has suffered from a shortage of land supply for key areas in the economy, such as employment land and residential land. Sometimes there's been high entry costs, which has meant that the private sector has been risk averse in terms of taking those sites forward. That's probably exacerbated as well by the property crash and the financial crisis from the late 2000s, 2008, 2009. Consequently, some of these sites that we've got within the portfolio, the programme, have been sort of stillborn for a number of years. And that's probably a good opportunity for me to segue into the actual projects themselves and give you a brief outline of what they include, Carol, and go forward from there. There are 6 projects within the Land and Property Programme. 5 of them are classified as sites and premises projects, and the 6th one is a specialist project dealing with capacity enhancements and safeguarding works within the port of Holyhead. If I start with the site and premises projects first, I'll run with them from east to west. That seems to be the order I tend to work through them, through no particularly ranking order, but it's just geographically appropriate. First one is in Wrexham. It's a site in Wrexham Gateway. We're looking to provide serviced employment land for businesses to be able to expand close to the A483, which is one of the dual carriageways linking off the A55. Wrexham, of course, is the home to one of AstraZeneca's main production lines for the Oxford vaccine, which touches on some of the high-profile businesses which you mentioned earlier, of course. The site we're looking at working with the County Council to provide serviced employment land. So we'll be taking the development risk in terms of providing main services, highways, drainage, power, those types of things. Also leads in and potentially into sectors which the town has got a good reputation in for things like biomed, R&D, high value manufacturing, which touches on some of the areas that Robin and some of the other programs are dealing with. The next project is the Welsh Government owned development site on the close to the A55 in Broughton, which again is adjacent to Airbus and close to the Advanced Manufacturing Centre. It's a site called the West Warren Hall in Broughton. It's a large mixed use development site. Currently, it's allocated for employment, but there's going to be a residential allocation once the local development plan is adopted, hopefully later this year. That one will be looking to provide complementary uses but spreading out from both Wrexham, Deeside Industrial Estate, and also potentially Chester Business Park as well. Again, the opportunity there for logistics, manufacturing, assembly, as well as commercial and business operations, potentially also incorporating up to 300 new homes as well. Moving further to the west, we have a large development site in Bodelwyddan. It's known as a key strategic site within the local authority development plan. 1,700 new homes, 20 plus hectares of employment land, local centres, potential there for, again, manufacturing, complementing businesses on the St Asaph Business Park, large sites, potential complementary sites as well for things like biomed, R&D. So again, touching on some of the sectors which Robin's programme and Stuart's programme are dealing with. Next project is a large former Victorian sanatorium in Denbigh. It's a listed building. We're working with a development partner to provide gap funding to make the scheme, to deliver the scheme. This scheme is working quite well, working forward. We'll be looking to deliver 300 new homes, as well as some business accommodation within the site, and safeguarding a Grade 2 star listed building as well, which is important as a piece of the local heritage in the context of the Denbigh area. Moving further to the west, we're working with Welsh Government on a business park site in Bangor, and the omens are looking good that we'll be able to deliver some investment into the site for a modern manufacturing employment accommodation, looking to gap fund that, potentially working with our partners, potentially up to providing up to a few thousand square meters of business accommodation. That could be potentially one of the projects that we're looking to deliver possibly in 22 or 2023. And then finally, the last project that's included within the Land and Property Programme is port capacity works within the Port of Holyhead. Henry's programme and Stuart's has touched on the importance of Anglesey, and a lot of these complementary projects actually link into the Port of Holyhead as well. We're currently working with Stena, who are the port owner and port authority, in terms of delivering safeguarding works, in terms of working with them on works to safeguard the breakwater, longest breakwater in Western Europe, as a fact for all of you. Been there for 150 odd years, so impressive piece of Victorian engineering, but also to increase the capacity into the port to be able to access areas potentially such as offshore wind. BP have just been acquiring seabed leases in the Irish Sea recently. Henry touched on the hydrogen hub as well, so there's a potential linkage into the port there. There's also the potential for a free port within the harbour as well, within the Port of Holyhead, and also elsewhere onto the island. So there's a number of interesting projects within Holyhead itself, clustered around the port, but complementing all the other programmes as well, with the opportunity then to both provide employment, business opportunities, and capitalise on the investment as well, which we're bringing to the table, and we're hoping to leverage in additional private sector investment as well, of course. So there we are, Carole. That's a brief canter through my programme.
David, thank you very much. And yes, so just looking at the port in Holyhead there, I mean, the geography is interesting in Holyhead, isn't it? It can be a challenge. The port hard up against the town, but so important, the lifeblood of Holyhead and indeed Anglesey. But, good to see those new programmes being brought forward, and, very exciting plans with hydrogen and tidal as well. So thank you for that overview, and thank you to our audience for your contributions on the Q&A. Please keep them coming in. If you can keep your questions nice and concise, we will get to the Q&A shortly. But I just want to check, are we joined by Askar Shebani representing the private sector? Is Askar with us? If he is, yes, I can see you. Welcome, Askar. Croeso. Askar, of course, well known to many in the North Wales business community. He's described in his biog as an adventurous entrepreneur. He's been entrepreneurial with businesses on the go since the age of 8, so plenty of experience, and a real driver and champion of North Wales, I would add, and the strengths of North Wales. Of course, running his own company, Comtech, from Deeside, but in a wider capacity as well through the Deeside Business Forum and more. So welcome, Askar, and I'd just like to invite you to give a private sector sector perspective on the North Wales economic ambitions here and on the growth deal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carole, and thanks for the kind words. First of all, before I start, I'd like to thank the organisers of this event. They have done such a wonderful job. The whole thing is oversubscribed. Probably would have had thousands of people joining in. Unfortunately, we never expect this to be so popular, but so a lot of people, unfortunately, sadly couldn't see the event. Hopefully, they can watch the recording of that later. Now, so basically, with what we are, private sector, we are all build all our businesses. We are volunteers. We don't charge anything. And we support North Wales Economic Ambition Board. And what we see, what is happening in North Wales is almost like an amazing transformation I have witnessed, because a lot of us live in North Wales and our children have been brought up here and we got a passion for North Wales. I remember that all these 6 councils, they were competing against each other, fighting against each other. Suddenly they have gone together and built Economic Ambition Board and working in one board as comrades from different political persuasions, different areas. What a wonderful coalition they have created. It's just a big congratulations for Economic Ambition Board, and that is amazing thing what they have done, which is never, and I've never seen anything in the United Kingdom. That shows what North Wales has got. This is the key competitive edge of North Wales, and they build amazing coalition with private sector. We don't just get involved in anything and spend our time for nothing, because we have seen the passion and the determination from the public sector, which in other areas, they find it difficult to work with the private sector, but they have managed just to do it from grassroots level. The Welsh government, UK government didn't tell them to create something amazing together. They did it within our community, and we have created something, again, different from any other parts of the United Kingdom. Now, what we have got here is just, without all this coalition, we wouldn't have 250 to 240 million on the table now. It wouldn't have happened. So that is the show, the working together, what we can achieve. Now, what the 240 million is, it sounds a lot of money, but the real money has got to come from the private sector, from innovation, how we can attract them. At the moment, money worth nothing in the bank. There are tons of money flushed all around in the city, in London and other places as well. The money's value is going down in the bank. So what they are doing is they're investing in infrastructure. That is return on investment on infrastructure is a fantastic opportunity for them. They are looking for areas they can invest. This is an amazing potential we've got here. I'm just giving an example. Tidal energy, molars. That is, you cannot have tidal energy anywhere else. There are very few places in the world we can have it. We are lucky, we can angle say it can happen. And if it goes ahead, which will go ahead, will be third largest eventually tidal energy in the world. I mean, that is just shows the potential here. We have got universities, great universities, but not many people knew about that. We realized that from the private sector, we've got an untapped potential in Bangor University when it comes to technology, when it comes to telecommunication, 5G. We realized that the innovation there can transform not North Wales, not Wales, the whole United Kingdom, because what they have come up with on the technology, this is the area I am technologist and I can see the potential. And that's how we differ. We can identify the potential where it could be potentially successful. They have come up with something that makes deployment of 5G technology affordable, commercially possible in rural communities. At the moment, it's not. It should say that. Normally, they go into densely populated areas. They have come up with an idea. attracted. And now we have got good private sector partners together, working with our scientists in Bangor University, and it's attracted quite a lot of private sector. I know Huawei was interested to put a lot of money there, but we had to reject because of the government decision. So it shows the innovation there is unique and amazing. If that goes away, it will be possible. I'm sure it's going to happen. Otherwise, private sector wouldn't join in. That will make Bangor University and DSP Center, which is going to get money from growth here, as one of the center of excellence for testing 5G and other related technologies there. One of the 4th, according to the CMS, in the United Kingdom. So we see when there's a coalition of private sector and private sector, we can create magic. And now we are talking about Freeport. We are fighting for Freeport, but a lot of people, unfortunately, they do not know. They don't understand what Freeport is about. They think it's just a reducing taxation. No, it's not. It's more than that. And we have seen all around the world, it can transform your manufacturing. North Wales is one of the best areas in the United Kingdom for manufacturing, especially Northeast Wales. Some of the best innovative companies are there. And next to Northeast Wales, we've got Mersey and Cheshire. Combine that, it's the biggest manufacturing hub of the United Kingdom, and it brings in over 30 billion a year. This is an incredible place for private sector to come here and invest. So we are building the infrastructure to be able to make it easier and more profitable for investors to come here. And I just say very clearly to the private sector, we know how to make money. If you come to North Wales, you'll make tons of money. Come and invest here, and your return on investment is greater than going anywhere else, because there's a passion here to support you. Our local authorities will welcome you. They'll make it easier for you. If you go some other places, they make it difficult for you. But our local authorities are pro-business and they pro-investment, and they want to make it a success. That is because they understand private sector. And overall, when you look at the other project, like hydrogen, we will be the best place in the United Kingdom for development of the hydrogen hubs. It doesn't happen anywhere else. But when you think of we've got a big transport business in North Wales. We've got one of the biggest food manufacturers are here, like Iceland. That's a homegrown business in North Wales. Although people probably don't know, they have seen all these shops everywhere in UK and abroad, but it is a homegrown business in the United Kingdom, in Wales. So what we need is, the potential is great. Private sector will work with the public sector. We will, within 5 years, I believe that we can transform North Wales to be one of the most successful area in the United Kingdom, because there's a well there. And also we are battle hardened. If you remember, when shot and steel demolished in our communities, right? There's a resurrection of that shot and steel to another manufacturing, Airbus and pharmaceutical businesses, and many other fantastic engineering. So we can do it. We have done it before. And then we've got next door to us, Liverpool. Now Freeport it is, which is good. And we always work with Liverpool very closely. So the whole area is very dynamic. And I am really excited to see something really great will happen in the next few years.
Thank you for that positive and energetic outlook there, Askar. Clearly what's driven your entrepreneurial career over the years, and now putting it behind the ambitions for North Wales. And I'd like to turn to our questions now. A few things that came up. first of all, if I could ask Alwen, it's come from an anonymous attendee, how will the growth deal contribute to a more resilient economy in North Wales after the pandemic? We've heard of areas of tourism, often it employs a lot of people, but we don't always see that economic uplift we see in some of our areas, are some of the poorest. We've had a positive outlook to begin with, but there are challenges there, aren't there? So how will this deal make us more resilient economically in North Wales?
Yeah, I think the growth deal is founded on, enabling the economy to be more resilient. I would also say, though, that I think North Wales is resilient. We've demonstrated that over the years, and I think Askar's just alluded to that. So we are so passionate as residents and as communities in North Wales. I think we already have the drive to be resilient. I think what the growth deal does is, after many years, and it's important to recognise that many years of work went into establishing the right areas for investment through the growth deal. And what we recognised were that there were key areas of investment that would sustain and enable the economy to grow, and therefore the portfolio of programmes and projects came about in that way. And it's all about creating new high-value jobs in the economy, and attracting people to come back. I think the pandemic, yes, has been devastating, and we continue to feel the impact of the pandemic every day. But actually, we're seeing much more interest in people coming home, and that's something we'd really encourage. And through the growth deal, we want to be in a position where we're creating high value opportunities, so that perhaps those people who are native to North Wales or Wales feel that they're able to return and bring their skills, bring their experience back into North Wales and benefit from the economy that we are investing in. So again, I think the COVID situation is offering us some clear opportunities to build on what is already a very tough and resilient economy.
Diolch, Alwen. And Dyfrig, that's so important, isn't it? We've seen a lot of outward migration of talent, and the deal is all about retaining talent here and attracting it in.
Yes, it's about job opportunities, isn't it? And certainly in my experience in the rural northwest, we have lost a number of our young people. Well, we are losing a number of our young people to places like Cardiff, which are attractive and provide opportunities and provide social opportunities as well. But I think what we've seen is that we have put all our eggs in one basket, rather. That we have become overly dependent, perhaps, on the hospitality industry, and we have lost some of those important employers, such as Trawsfynydd Wylfa, which provided high-value, highly skilled jobs for local people. And what I think we have as an important resource in North Wales is that skilled workforce, and a workforce which will remain and has will stick to the job, and I think that's something which we can really sell to potential investors. We really do have that important resource here.
Thank you. And of course, Stuart, digital's so important to that. If we want to attract people in and if we want to keep people here, the pandemic has created opportunities, hasn't it? Jobs can now be done from anywhere. You don't have to go to Manchester to work for a Manchester employer, but we do need the digital infrastructure to stand up here.
Yeah, I think every large employer is thinking twice now around their estate strategies, that they're thinking, that their workers can be productive, can be efficient working remotely. We're all doing it now, as we sit here now. It isn't just the private sector, but the public sector as well, which is a big employer in North Wales, incidentally. But if we can use connectivity, better connectivity, as a conduit for local people in North Wales to access employment opportunities potentially based elsewhere in the UK, then it can only be a good thing. It's difficult, I think, to foresee a future in the UK or in North Wales where connectivity doesn't play an integral part of the economy.
Thank you. So absolutely vital that we're ahead of the game there and not left behind. And then, you know, those not spots go. If more people are leading their working lives from home and setting up businesses from home, as we've seen. And of course, Wales is a country of small businesses. They are the backbone of the economy. Just a question's come in here on the energy brief. So Henry, if I could put this to you, is the Ambition Board supporting the plans for hydrogen production in Holyhead, either financially or otherwise? Please, if you could address that one.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, we're very supportive of that project. I think we've been working very closely with colleagues from Welsh Government over the last 6 months or so, who've been providing the funding to both the Holyhead Hub and to ourselves to allow us to undertake detailed feasibility studies. Because of course we need to understand with hydrogen, well, if we produce hydrogen, who's going to use it? Where's the demand going to come from? And I think that's the key thing. And that's going back to my point from earlier, that's the really important synergy, if you like, or a link between the two projects is how can we work together to stimulate that demand, create that demand to ensure that if we are going to be generating or sourcing hydrogen, that there's going to be those end users. So we are going to be working extremely closely with Holyhead on that one. And I think, again, there's another really important link to you know, the Glyndŵr Wrexham University's Enterprise Engineering Optics Centre. Robin alluded to that earlier. The work they're doing, you know, the leading work on R&D with respect to hydrogen fuel cells, and they're looking at refueling, hydrogen refueling infrastructure. So I think you know, understanding and learning from that project as well is going to be really important for both the Holyhead Hub and the Deeside Hub.
Thank you for that. And a couple of questions from Councillor Paul Shotton. Earlier in the Q&A, Paul, you mentioned, you know, your fears for a lost generation and how the Ambition Board can stave off there being a lost generation after COVID. And also a supplementary there, Alwen, if you could perhaps address this, what will the next stage be, knowing that 120 million by both governments has been put in, but, you know, much more will be needed going forward. You know, we can't do a lot without money, can we? We need, you know, you need the investment.
Yeah, absolutely. So to address the first part of the question, I think in terms of the young people, I think we do have a skills programme specifically within the vision that we have for North Wales, which is to create a sustainable and inclusive economic growth for the region. The skills programme isn't funded through the growth deal, but we do need to find alternative funding mechanisms to fund that skills programme, and that will directly address you know, the skills need to feed the capital investment that's going through the growth deal, and to provide the young generation with the right skills to be in those high value jobs. So ideally, we want to be creating jobs for our young people so that we don't lose the opportunity and that we don't lose that generation. We've done it before, and that gives me great encouragement. As I said earlier, we are resilient, and we don't fail to rise up to a challenge. I think the cohesiveness of the region and the impact that we have when we work together has been demonstrated really well in the way that we've achieved the deal, in the negotiations we've had with governments throughout the period of time in the run-up to signing heads of terms and over the last 12 months as well, and the cohesiveness between 6 local authorities and the private sector. And that is something that is unique. We are large enough to have an impact as a region, but we're close enough to have really strong relationships as well. So yeah, absolutely, you know, that the future for young people that's the reason why we're doing this ultimately. It is for our future generations, and I think that's really important to note. On the private sector investment, we absolutely need investment from the private sector. We have 240 million secured through government, but our deal in its entirety is over £1 billion. And therefore, there's a huge dependency on leveraging interest and leveraging investment from partners in the private sector. And the investments that we're making, as Askar said earlier, the investments we're making are designed to unlock the potential for that private sector. So actually, we're making North Wales more investable by removing areas of historic market failure where there was no commercial, it didn't make commercial sense for the private sector to invest. We're investing in it through the growth deal, and with the backing of the Economic Ambition Board, we're removing some of those barriers, and we're saying North Wales is now investable. Let's talk, let's see what we can do to welcome investors into the region, which is something that we do anyway, but more so now through the opportunities I think the growth deal will provide us, and supported, of course, with the enabling programs of digital and good access to resilient, high-speed, quality digital networks that can compete with the rest of the world, and also access to the right premises and through the land and property program in order to support the development and growth of new businesses in the region.
Diolch, Alwen. And turning to land and property, David, there's a question come in from Dave Dargan. He says, we have just opened a manufacturing facility in North Wales where we are factory building affordable homes. Of course, great need and demand for those in North Wales using MMC. What are the government's plans and aspirations around promoting and supporting modern methods of construction for the residential developments across North Wales? So that perhaps straggles David and Robin, but David, if you'd just like to address that, please.
Yes, certainly. Well, in terms of the land and property programme, we'll be looking at providing a pipeline of residential development sites, and we've been in discussions with a group of registered social landlords in terms of the delivery of accelerated numbers of new homes, and that would be predominantly using modern methods of construction, which is what the questioner asked about. In terms of the Welsh Government's policy, the Welsh Government's policy is to try to encourage and develop the supply chain to increase the capacity in modern methods of construction across North Wales, well, across the whole of Wales, in fairness, rather than just North Wales, but because it's building on the fact that the raw materials are present in the country. There's a skilled base of employers and employees for building up the MMC sector. And certainly that's an area we anticipate that we'll be working closely with going forward on our particular sites, but also having a pipeline as well. Bearing in mind that we'll be moving towards low carbon or near zero carbon homes as well as we move forward in the lifetime of the growth deal. So MMC, we feel, will become probably alongside traditional forms of construction, brick and mortar, improved standards will mean that we'll be able to hopefully accelerate the numbers of units being built, but building on working with the private sector developers, builders as well, who tend to favour at this moment in time more traditional forms, but no doubt that will change, we feel, in terms of complementing MMC into traditional build as well. So we think the future for the sector is going to grow from where it is at the moment, and we see that being an increasingly important part in the supply of new homes across North Wales.
Thank you for that, David. And Askar, I'd just like to turn to you in terms of the balance between nurturing homegrown talent and entrepreneurs and businesses that are rooted here and attracting in. Often, people tend to be for one or the other, but ultimately we need both, don't we? We need to nurture that local indigenous talent, but also attract inward investment. Would that be your view?
Yeah, we have amazing small organizations built amazing companies in Wales as a whole. And unfortunately, there weren't before enough support, and they migrated places like Silicon Valley, different places. The government, UK governments now, they have changed their policy now. They are not talking about diversification of industry, especially in my area, telecommunication diversification strategy. So they have realized that they have got to support homegrown innovative organizations. And we've got plenty of them, absolutely plenty of them. So what we need is we need to make sure to concentrate our homegrown businesses, because there's a reason for it. They stay here, they don't go away if they are looked after. Because their families, their roots are here. If they grow here, they'll make their headquarters here, and that they'll bring more innovation, more value to this area. Okay, it looks sometimes great to bring an inward investor from outside, a big name. But that sound bites great. But we have got fantastic manufacturing here. For instance, I just earlier on said Iceland is homegrown business. Is a great business. Next door to me, there's a company called KK Food, Fine Food. The person who started that, she started from the kitchen. And then now they are employing 400 people. But we don't celebrate our own successes. We haven't. Now I think we will. The culture has changed. And I think we need to concentrate in both our homegrown businesses, look after them, making sure to get enough support, and also bring outside investors here, especially for our infrastructure, because they will make a lot of money coming here for investing in our infrastructure. Infrastructure is a very profitable area to invest. So combination, there's a balance there. We've got to get the balance right, and we will work very closely with the public sector, with our councils, North Wales Economic Ambition Board, to make it a reality.
Thank you for that. And an anonymous attendee question that's come in on the Q&A. Dyfrig, if you could address this for me. Do you think the Shared Prosperity Fund provides an opportunity for helping to fund investment and grow the economy in North Wales? So the Shared Prosperity Fund, there's been a lot of debate around this about who should control it. That's obviously a lot of the money that we have been used to flowing into Wales from the EU, which will now go via that Shared Prosperity Fund. So who has the hands on the purse strings has been a source of great debate. Dyfrig, is it an opportunity for North Wales, or do you feel we're perhaps one step removed now?
No, it is an opportunity for North Wales, and really we are in the business of grasping every opportunity for any source of funding wherever they come from, and we will do that, and certainly that is our intention, and we're working on projects which might be suitable for that kind of funding. What is disappointing about the Shared Prosperity Fund is that it is much less in quantum than we were receiving previously. But there we are. That's another argument we politicians can have between ourselves. Otherwise, yes, we will do the best we can out of the funding available, and we are looking for opportunities to attract that kind of funding into North Wales. And the point, I think, the important point is, you see the team here, well, part of the team here today, led by Alwen, and I think we have, well, I would presume to say that we have one of the strongest teams in the whole of Wales. We've got at least 16 at the moment and expanding. We are well placed with our team of experts that you see today to make sure that we are in a position to take advantage of any funding which is available from any source.
Well, our time is drawing to a close, and it just leaves me to say it's been a great pleasure to be your chair today. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you to our attendees. Without you and your interest, this wouldn't be such an interesting and sparky debate. So thank you for your interaction on the Q&A. I hope you've found it interesting and stimulating. I certainly have. If you'd like to find out more about the Economic Ambition Board, you can go to their website. That's North Wales Economic Ambition Board.co.uk, and you can carry on the debate there and find out some more detail. I'm very proud to hail from North Wales, live and work here. I can testify that it's a fantastic region to do business and be in business, and it's a great pleasure to be part of this event today. I would also like to say, if you're a business out there, you're attending today, with my other hat on, business correspondent, work and economy, covering workplace stories and economy stories for ITV Cymru Wales. Do get in touch, Carole.green@itv.com. Always interested in your stories, wherever they come from in Wales, but particularly fond of those on my doorstep. So diolch yn fawr iawn, and thank you very much to Wales Week in London, who are hosting a fantastic week of events. I think there's still a couple more to go, so do join those if you can. But for now, diolch, and have a very good afternoon.